This is one of those games that might never be perfectly playable on modern machines, and it's not because of the reasons you might think. I've actively avoided this game whenever someone mentions it because I've tried many times in the past to get this to work. This thing is so frustrating, but why is that? The game is actually on Steam, which is a lot better than a lot of other older games. It's also made by Rockstar Games. I mean, they're a legendary company. They wouldn't sell you something broken and unplayable, right? Well, I'm sure a lot of you are probably already screaming, no, that's not the case. I mean, they sold us the definitive edition, for crying out loud. This company is known for making really odd decisions when it comes to some of their more legendary franchises. So, why the neglect on Manhunt? Well, the truth behind it is that you can pick this game up on Steam for a reasonable $10, and if you do so, Rockstar Games is going to hand you a completely broken and unplayable mess. But the real kicker here is that in its current state on Steam, many of the anti-piracy measures, like this gate here not opening for example within the first 5 minutes, this is going to happen to paying customers. And because of all the weird, twisted stuff that Rockstar Games have done for this game, it made me want to make this kind of video, where instead of renewing an older game and, celebrating it, we actually do it out of spite this time. Alongside that, I also want to explore the gross treatment of fans from Rockstar Games, because it gets a whole lot worse than just selling a broken game. But don't worry, I'm not going to treat you like trash like Rockstar Games does to its customers, which is why you should subscribe to help me get to 100k subs. Now, the glue that really sticks all of this together and is going to make this work is by far the Manhunt Fixer. As the name implies, this fixes many of the issues such as crashing, this gate not opening, and also much more. It also comes with optional enhancement mods such as MHP and Manhunt plugin MH, which we'll get into in a little bit. Firstly though, I want to tell you the story on why this fixer is even needed in the first place and what it actually does. The author found something in the game directory called testapp.exe, and this is a different executable for the game, one that he suspected was the original 2004 PC retail release. This version, when fixed to run on modern hardware, actually didn't have the anti-piracy measures. So why does the other executable have them? And to answer this question, we first need to go back all the way to 2004, where in April, the group known as Razor 1911 would crack the game. At the time, Windows XP was the thing. Vista wouldn't release until 2006, which meant this crack was fully compatible with XP, but not with Vista or anything higher, and that is very important to note, because years later, Rockstar would release the Steam version in January of 2008. And who would have guessed, the version did not work on Windows Vista? Coincidence? Maybe. The community found a way to fix this using the hex editor, and I think this is the same fix that the Manhunt Fixer uses. This is also the same exact fix that worked on Razor's crack of the game. You see where I'm going with this? Well, nothing was proven just yet, but 2 years had passed and no one really suspected a thing. And on May 2010, someone noticed something a little bit strange. Liam AJ found out that Rockstar had used a cracked version of Max Payne 2 for their Steam release. I mean, the frickin' ASCII art for a well-known wearers group known as Myth is just sitting there right inside the exe of the game. So what did Rockstar do? Well, they pushed out a completely new exe for the game without any traces of that crack. But for some reason, instead of hiding the evidence, they left the cracked executable in there. And guess what they renamed it to? Testapp.exe. I wanted to see for myself, and well, yeah, even till this day, if you download Max Payne 2, there will in fact be a testapp.exe in there, and inside the hex editor, the Myth ASCII art is right there. Why their sneaky cover up of this for Max Payne 2 matters though, is because, well, at this point, the cat was out of the bag. So Rockstar Games was obviously a little bit panicky here, because they knew fans were onto something. And well, they didn't want anyone digging up their skeletons. And only 9 days after, they release an update for Manhunt, not bringing any new content or anything like that, They simply make a new exe and then rename the old one testapp.exe. And so people quickly looked into it and realized that, yeah, this has a Razer 1991 mark inside it, which means this has been a pirated version this whole time as well. You might be wondering though, if the old one is cracked, is the new one that they put in place? Actually, no, and that's what makes this one actually worse. This new executable doesn't check if the disk is in your PC like the original disk copies do. They either found an executable that didn't have the checks, or applied a patch to ignore it. But what it looks like they did was boot the game up, realize that it didn't check for the disk and that it ran, and then just shipped it to Steam. But they clearly did not play it for literally 5 minutes, because if they did so, they would know that you're soft locked. You cannot enter this gate. But players, you know, the ones that actually played the games, quickly pointed out all of the bugs. There was so many reports of crashing and not getting past the gate and other soft locked issues. People quickly found out that yes, these are anti-piracy measures, because Rockstar not only did not bother to test it, but also didn't bypass their own crack protection. What's even crazier is now we're at a point where we're over 15 years later now, and nothing has changed. It's still in this broken state and fully available to purchase. This whole thing literally makes me so mad, because people don't trust game companies nowadays, and this kind of proves that they really shouldn't. This is a company that goes out of their way to shut down passion projects like reverse engineering GTA 3 and Vice City. They shut down those projects to keep these older games alive, whilst literally doing nothing at all to keep their own games alive. The reason the community are doing things like this is because you're not doing it. So what does this all mean for getting the game to work? Well, with all of this in mind, we now know that the secret to getting the game to work is via the manhunt fixer, because what the creator has done here is just completely disregard that lazy updated exe that Rockstar pushed out and focused on the test app fix they left behind. So this allows the game to work on modern Windows machines and play the game without any of the anti-piracy stuff. So the best way to play Manhunt today is to use the pirated, cracked executable that Rockstar themselves gave you. I still cannot believe this is all real. Manhunt Fixer is an automated tool that is really easy to install, and when you do so, it's gonna fix a few things like the executable not launching at all, various AI errors and scripts not executing properly, achieved by limiting the frame rate to 60, also fixing a bunch of the end level crashes, and the audio and music looping. It's got a menu to easily choose what you want, and it works with the Steam and also retail release of the game. It also comes with a variety of optional enhancements that you might want to consider, like widescreen front-end textures which are rescaled and blurred. MHP is also really recommended because it improves the renderer by completely rewriting it. Besides enhancing the look of the game, it also takes back some of the things that are in the PS2 release that are not on the PC one. There's also PS2 cache texture. If you want to take it a bit further and make it more like the PS2 release, this replaces it with the PS2 model, and some people might like the extra details that this one has over the PC, but it's entirely subjective. There's also fixed global models, which fixes rats and crows being completely pitch black. It also fixes some smaller, transparent models on the maps. There's also some novelty things like the Discord plugin, which will show your game activity and how many kills you have and your health and stuff. More importantly though, plugin MH is a big one. This adds a lot of features. It includes access to the original developer menu, custom menu, console, first person mode, simple mod loader, and much, much more. Because it only adds extra things like that though, I wouldn't recommend it as someone that wants a base experience. If you want an absolutely stock experience, my recommendation would be to get MHP and fix global textures. Those are the only two that you're going to need to fix the game. Because the Manhunt Fixer also applies a widescreen fix, you can put this INI file just called windowed mode in the path of the game, and that's going to make it run in windowed as well if you want that. You might also have issues using controller with this game like I did, because a lot of the X input controllers, for example, have the complete wrong mappings and are practically unusable. Apparently you can use something called X input plus, but you can also try using Steam input to figure this out. Besides that though, it's weird that I'm saying that this game is so broken but just one simple thing fixes it, but it's not going to be perfect, if that makes sense. You're not going to have a super smooth experience here. There are things that you can layer on top of this, stuff like Manhunt Remastered, which adds 60 FPS FMVs and upscales the textures. There's also Blood Moon Manhunt, which again adds higher quality textures. Also Project Casa, which adds beta content. More gore execution / new cams, which, as the name implies, adds more of those features. Improved effects, improves the muzzle flashes, for example, for guns. There's also even an RTX Remix mod for Manhunt that adds full path trace lighting and PBR textures to the game, and it does look pretty good. I think the problem is though, a lot of these RTX Remix things just have so many different things about them that just aren't quite right yet. But I think, you know, given a little bit of improvement over the next few years, will actually make these super cool to try out. For now though, I just like to keep things basic. I think getting the game to just work with Manhunt Fixer, and then making sure to cap the FPS to 60 in order to not avoid any issues, which the Manhunt Fixer should do itself, but I like to just double check and make sure that Reaver Tuner is setting it to 60 as well, just to be sure. For me personally, I'm a Steam snob, so to play this game on Steam is kind of the ideal way for me to experience it, but I have to say, I tried out the game running on the PCSX2 emulator, which is the original release of the game. This was originally made for just the PlayStation 2. It was then released on PC and Xbox, I think a year later, but the fact that we can get it running pretty perfectly on the PCSX2 emulator on your PC, I would say that if you actually want the best, most authentic experience, this is by far the way to go. It is so smooth, there's widescreen, there's also a 60 FPS patch, so you can get the exact same frame rates as PC, because remember, you have to lock PC frame rates in order to not break the game. And then on top of that, you can crank the resolutions to 4K and, you know, try some extra effects as well if you like. Maybe even add some textures. There are some upscale textures out there that you can try. Again, for me personally, I just prefer it on Steam, so I'm willing to put up with the issues. But if you want the most issue-free experience, definitely go for PCSX2, especially because controllers just work right out the gate with that version. No tinkering needed. Another thing I think is worth noting is the noise effects. Now, this is purely personal preference, but I just want to kind of give my take on this. The thing is, on the PS2 version, if you run it at native PS2 resolution and stock settings, you'll find that the noise effect is really atmospheric, and I think it's the best way to experience this game. But if you crank the internal resolution on PCSX2, or you play it on PC at high modern resolutions, the noise effect is terrible. It is so over the top and just makes the image look really weird, because you've got this super blurry noise effect on top of a super clear crystal image. So for me, if I was going to play it at the highest resolutions possible, I would definitely turn off the noise. But if I want the ultimate authentic Manhunt experience, it's got to be playing on PCSX2, switching to software renderer, to be honest, which means that it's not using your graphics card to render the image, but it's almost perfect emulation to the PS2, which means you don't get to turn up the internal resolutions or do any fancy stuff, but that's why it's so cool, especially for a game this dark and gritty and atmospheric. It is actually incredible to play it like this. Honestly though, it's just about having options. Like, you have all these options now. With Manhunt Fixer, you technically do have PC. No, it's not perfect. It's really like stuttery feeling and kind of clunky compared to the PCSX2, but we have options here, and that's really what matters. So the community, once again, has kind of pulled their weight and done a whole lot more than what Rockstar will probably ever do. To be honest, I have no faith in Rockstar at this point. I can't really stress enough how much the community does for all of these older games, and to be honest, this channel wouldn't even exist without the work that all of these dedicated fans do to bring these games back to life. And if you want to see more of that kind of stuff, then I think you should check out this video on screen right now. See you over there.